slap echoed louder than the clatter of plates. Every conversation in the diner froze for half a second, just long enough for everyone to hear it, and then just long enough for everyone to pretend they hadn't. Mary's head jerked to the side, her glasses skidding across the table before falling to the floor. She didn't cry out. She never did. She simply lowered her eyes as if she were the one who had done something wrong. Mary Thompson was 19, slight in frame, with a permanent limp from a spinal injury she'd suffered as a child. Her left leg dragged just enough to remind the world that she was different. She worked part-time at Graceway Diner wiping counters and refilling napkins, saving every dollar she could while helping her widowed mother pay rent. That evening, she was off duty, sitting alone in a booth, carefully counting coins to see if she could afford a grilled cheese and soup. The boys who stood over her, Kyle, Brandon, and Eric, were regulars, loud, entitled, the kind of young men who mistook cruelty for confidence. Kyle was the one who'd slapped her. "Don't you hear when someone's talking to you, cripple?" he sneered, his friends laughing as if they were on stage. Mary's hands trembled as she reached for her fallen glasses. Her fingers didn't quite cooperate, and one lens rolled under the booth. A waitress named Sarah watched from behind the counter, her face pale with anger and fear. She wanted to intervene, but she'd seen what happened the last time someone spoke up to those boys. They vandalized the place, and the owner blamed the staff. "Leave me alone," Mary whispered, her voice barely audible. Brandon leaned closer. "What was that? Speak up." He flicked one of Mary's coins off the table. It spun, then disappeared beneath a nearby chair. Around them, diners stared into their coffee cups. An older man folded his newspaper higher. A couple at the counter suddenly found the menu fascinating. No one moved. No one spoke. Mary finally stood, bracing herself on the table. Pain shot up her legs, sharp and familiar. "I'm going home," she said, trying to sound strong. As she limped toward the door, Eric stuck out his foot. She stumbled, barely catching herself on the doorframe. Laughter followed her out into the cold night. Outside, Mary sat on the curb, her body shaking, not from the pain but from the humiliation. She hugged her knees, tears finally spilling over. She wondered, as she often did, why being kind and quiet never seemed to be enough. Inside the diner, life returned to normal within minutes. Plates clinked. The boys finished their burgers and left without paying the full bill. The owner sighed and let it go. By the time an hour passed, the slap was already becoming a story people would tell later, framed with excuses and shrugs. That's when the sound of engines rolled through the parking lot. Low, thunderous, not one or two but many. The windows rattled slightly as a line of motorcycles pulled in, chrome glinting under the streetlights. One by one, leather-clad bikers dismounted. They were men and women of different ages, some with gray in their beards, others barely past 30. Patches on their jackets read Iron Cross Fellowship. The diner door opened, and suddenly the room felt smaller. At the front was a tall man with a weathered face and calm eyes. His name was Michael Reynolds. He removed his helmet, revealing close-cropped hair and a small silver cross hanging around his neck. Behind him came David, broad-shouldered and quiet than Thomas, who walked with a slight limp of his own, and a dozen others. Conversation died instantly. Michael looked around the diner, taking everything in, the nervous staff, the half-eaten meals, the tension hanging thick in the air. He smiled politely. "Evening," he said, his voice steady. "Mind if we grab some food?" Sarah swallowed hard. Of course, she managed. Sit anywhere. They filled several booths, their presence commanding without a single threat. As menus were handed out, Michael leaned toward Sarah. "We're looking for a young woman," he said softly. "Name, Mary, brown hair, glasses, walks with a limp." Sarah's eyes widened. She left earlier. Michael nodded, as if he already knew. "Did someone hurt her?" Sarah hesitated, then something in his expression, concern, not anger, broke her. She told him everything. The slap, the laughter, the silence that followed. Michael closed his eyes for a moment. Around the diner, the bikers had gone very still. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "Do you know where she lives?" Sarah gave him the address. Meanwhile, outside the diner, Kyle and his friends hadn't gone far. They were across the street, leaning against their truck, laughing about the incident. When they noticed the bikers, their laughter faded. "Did you see that?" Brandon muttered. "What is this, a movie?" Eric tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. "Relax, they're just here to eat." Across the lot, Michael stepped outside, helmet under his arm. He looked straight at them. "Evening, gentlemen," he called out. Kyle straightened. "What do you want?" Michael walked closer, not threatening, not rushed. David and Thomas flanked him. "We heard you had an interaction with a young woman earlier." "So," Kyle scoffed, "that's none of your business." Michael nodded slowly. "It became our business when you hurt her." Brandon bristled. "You accusing us of something?" "I'm asking you," Michael replied. "Did you slap Mary Thompson?" Silence stretched. Eric looked away first. Kyle swallowed. She was being rude. Michael's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "She's disabled. She was alone, and she asked you to leave her alone." "So what?" Kyle snapped. "You gonna hit us?" Michael shook his head. "No." That seemed to confuse them, more than anger would have. "We're going to do something better," Michael continued. "You're going to apologize to her, in person." The boys laughed nervously. "Yeah, right." Michael's gaze hardened, not with violence but with authority. "You have 1 hour, we'll be with her. After that, we'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly who you are and what you did. Employers, churches, schools, your parents." David spoke for the first time. "We believe in accountability." Thomas added quietly, "And grace, but grace comes after truth." The bikers turned and walked away, leaving the boys shaken, their bravado crumbling. At Mary's small apartment, her mother, Elizabeth, opened the door with wary eyes. She was tired, lines etched deep from years of worry. "Yes." Michael removed his helmet again. "Ma'am, my name is Michael Reynolds. We're friends of your daughter." Elizabeth's heart skipped. "Is Mary okay?" Mary appeared behind her, clutching a blanket around her shoulders. When she saw the bikers, her eyes widened in fear. Michael knelt so he was at her eye level. "Mary," he said gently, "I'm sorry it took us an hour to get here. We heard what happened." Mary's breath hitched. "I didn't do anything," she said quickly, old habits rising to the surface. Michael smiled softly. "We know." They sat with her, listening as she told her story, not just about the slap, but about years of being overlooked, mocked, and ignored. Elizabeth wept quietly beside her. "You didn't deserve any of it," Sarah said. Yes, Sarah, the waitress who had followed them after her shift, guilt heavy on her heart. "And I'm sorry I didn't speak up." Mary squeezed her hand. "Thank you for coming now." An hour later, there was a knock at the door. Kyle stood there, pale and rigid, his friends behind him. Their eyes were red, whether from fear or shame, it was hard to tell. Michael stepped aside. "Go on." Kyle swallowed hard. "Mary, I'm sorry. What I did was wrong. I had no right." Brandon spoke next, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, too." Eric couldn't meet her eyes. "We won't bother you again." Mary's heart pounded. This was the moment she dreamed of and dreaded. She took a breath. "I accept your apology," she said slowly, "but I hope you learned something from this, because I'm a person, not a joke." They nodded and left. After the door closed, Mary sagged into a chair, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were different, lighter. Michael stood. "We'll be around," he said. "You're not alone." Weeks later, Graceway Diner felt different. Sarah spoke up more. So did others. The boys never returned. And sometimes, on Friday nights, a line of motorcycles would pull into the parking lot, not to intimidate, but to eat, laugh, and remind everyone watching that kindness could be loud too. Mary still limped. Life didn't magically become easy. But she walked taller now, knowing that even when the world stayed silent, someone would choose to stand. And sometimes, justice didn't arrive with sirens. Sometimes it rolled in on two wheels, wearing leather, carrying grace.